I've covered a lot of conflicts, but this one feels different. Because for me, it all started just yesterday morning.
Yep, I was in Dubai with my family. We were on vacation, completely oblivious to the fact that the entire region was about to erupt.
And then things got weird. We hear about an explosion at the Fairmont Hotel, which was literally right across the street from us. So we decided, okay, time to go. We managed to get to the airport for an early flight out, feeling like we just dodged a bullet. But we had no idea what was coming next.
So we're in the air, maybe 2 hours in, and the pilot comes on the intercom. The news? The United States and Israel had just launched a massive, full-scale attack on Iran, and suddenly the only thing going through your mind is, are we flying through a war zone right now? Are there missiles in the air with us?
And when we finally landed, wow, the full picture just slammed into us. Dubai was in total chaos. The airport was being evacuated. There was smoke everywhere. We're getting reports of drones being shot down right over the Burj Khalifa. Missile debris actually hit the Burj Al Arab. Some of my family couldn't get out. They're still there. Which brings us to the terrifying question, what on earth just happened?
Okay, let's break this down. It all started with the assassination of Iran's most powerful man. The operation launched by the US and Israel was called Operation Epic Fury, and from the sound of it, it was a multi-day assault. Officially, the goal was to completely wipe out Iran's missile industry. We saw strikes happening all over the country, from the capital Tehran all the way to Isfahan.
And then, the news that just stopped everyone in their tracks, a confirmation from Iranian state TV. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had been killed. They said it was a strike on his compound. He was in his office when it happened, and his daughter, son-in-law, and even his granddaughter were killed right alongside him.
The reaction in Tehran was just wild. It was immediate, and it was completely split down the middle. On one hand, you had people literally celebrating in the streets, seeing this as the end of a brutal regime. But on the other, you had people openly weeping, mourning the loss of their leader. It was like a snapshot of just how fractured that country really is.
So, how did Iran respond? Well, their answer was fast. It was huge, and it dragged the entire region right into the middle of this war.
Iran's IRGC, that's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, didn't waste any time. They launched their own counteroffensive, calling it Operation True Promise 4. And their main targets? 27 American military bases dotted all across the Middle East.
But this wasn't just military on military, not at all. Missiles started raining down on the UAE, on Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. We saw smoke pouring from the huge Al Udeid air base in Qatar. And get this, the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. That's the nerve center for all U.S. naval operations there. It took a direct hit. But they even targeted civilian areas, luxury hotels, international airports, you name it. And to give you an idea of the scale here, just look at the attack on the UAE. It was absolutely staggering. Official sources say Iran fired over 1,100 missiles at the country. Now, as you can see from this data, their air defense systems did an incredible job, intercepting almost all of them, plus nearly 1,200 drones. And that's a key point, because it explains why most of the damage people saw wasn't from direct explosions, but from all the debris of these intercepted missiles and drones falling from the sky.
Right, so a war like this is never contained. It's never just over there. The ripple effects go global, immediately. And for a country like India, the stakes are unbelievably high.
First, let's talk about the human cost. There are over 10 million Indians living and working in these Gulf countries. Think about that. That's not just a statistic. That's your friends, your family members, your neighbors, who are now caught smack in the middle of a war zone.
And then, of course, there's the economy. India gets over half of all its crude oil through one narrow waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, a channel that is now, for all intents and purposes, blocked by Iran. This is basically a nightmare scenario for India's economy. Gas prices, shipping costs, inflation, everything is about to go through the roof.
And this is where it gets political. Just 2 days before the attack, India's prime minister was in Israel meeting with their top leaders. Now, critics are pointing out that an attack of this size must have been planned weeks in advance. And so they're asking, does the timing of this visit signal a major shift? Was it an endorsement, moving India away from its traditional policy of staying neutral in the region?
So that's the big question, right? How did we get here? How did things go from protests and unrest to an all-out regional war so unbelievably fast?
Well, the countdown to this war was terrifyingly quick. It really kicked off in late 2025 when Iran's economy just completely collapsed. That sparked the biggest protests the country had ever seen. The government's response was brutal, a crackdown that killed an estimated 30,000 people. And yet, here's the crazy part. Just one day before the attack, an official from Oman was on record saying a peace deal between the US and Iran was within reach. The very next day, Operation Epic Fury began.
You know, watching all of this unfold, you can't help but get a really bad case of déjà vu. It brings back some pretty uneasy memories of past interventions in the Middle East, and it makes you ask a really important question. Have we learned absolutely anything?
I mean, the goal here isn't exactly subtle. A tweet from former President Trump aimed directly at the Iranian people says it all. When we are finished, take over your government. So let's be clear, this isn't just about destroying missiles. This is about regime change, and it's being sold as liberation.
But liberation looks a lot different on the ground. The reality is horrific. We got reports from the city of Minabab that a girls' primary school was bombed. It was during the day, so classes were full. At least 100 children were killed. Behind all the strategy and geopolitics, there is a devastating, heartbreaking human cost.
And this is why it feels so hauntingly familiar. Remember Iraq? Remember Libya? In both cases, brutal dictators were taken out by foreign intervention, all with these grand promises of freedom and democracy. And what was the actual result? Decades of instability, the rise of new, even scarier terrorist groups. And for the average person just trying to live their life, things got so much worse.
So this all comes down to one final critical question. Is this intervention really going to bring peace and freedom to the people of Iran, or are we just watching history repeat itself, creating another failed state, another power vacuum that's going to unleash even greater chaos on the region for decades to come?